You are watching Channel 3, programming for the Mount Washington Valley, produced by Valley Vision. DVDs of our programs are available from 356-8941 or by email at office@valleyvision.com.
There's a guy. Welcome back, folks. Here you are. You're back in here tonight with Tom McLaughlin from Lovell, Maine, land of the extinct rattlesnakes, and Gino Funicello from that lovely, wonderful, God-fearing town, Jackson, New Hampshire. And just to let you know, and I hope we're going to get your cards and letters on this week we're going to try a different little format. We're not quite going to be as timed and pressured as we were in the past, and we'll be able to give longer-winded dissertations on the various subjects that you may find interesting or uninteresting.
I hope they're not long-winded. I hope they're erudite.
We have to cut to the chase.
We do?
Yeah. Well, and we're going to cut to the chase because we're going to start with our new motif, and Tom can lead off with a discussion.
You mentioned that Lovell is the land of extinct rattlesnakes. I don't know where that came from.
I know, come out of my world of knowledge.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I often wonder if rattlesnakes are actually they're called extinct, but
No, they're not extinct.
they're timber rattlers,
Oh,
which can exist in this kind of habitat. So you've heard of them?
I'm fair to tell you, I actually hunted rattlesnakes
Where?
out in the Nevada desert.
Okay, well we know they're there, right? But okay.
But I mean, it didn't do me very good because.
What'd you hunt them for?
Well,
You're hungry?
I was at this business thing, where you go to these really nice resorts and stuff, and they took us out to find rattlesnakes. It was actually in Arizona. And we were out in the desert, and they handed us 6 guns, pistols, and we were supposed to go around and shoot at these targets, and then if you saw a rattlesnake, you could take a shot at them, I guess.
They must be hard to hit.
They're hard to hit. I almost hit myself because I don't know. I never handled a gun in my life, and they gave me, being a liberal, anti-gun.
But
and
the old-fashioned revolvers?
Take this gun, and I'm doing it like,
Like
Roy
Gunsmoke?
Rogers, snapping the gun like this, like you're
yeah?
snapping a whip. And the guy, the tour guide that was with us, jumped me and took the gun away and said, you're going to blow your leg off, boy. And I probably would have.
Why I brought it up is my uncle, who's dead now. During the Depression, he worked for the CCCs, and they put him in New Hampshire, even though he
My
lived
father
in
did
the
too.
greater Boston area. And he would go around through the woods and do various different things, But one of the things that he said, I ended up, he actually saw a timber rattler in New Hampshire. So he's the only person who's
that
ever told
reported
me.
it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't know who he
Well, that you
reported
knew.
it to, that I personally knew.
Yeah.
And he had veracity. He's not a BS artist.
No.
So that's it. So they were there at least in the 1930s. There was one in New Hampshire somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where in the state he was, but
But they're all over the deserts. I mean, you just trip over
yeah.
them,
yeah. But
Nasty place.
But I used to think about that. I mean, I worked in the woods cutting my own firewood, and he said that they were in south-facing ledges, because that's where the habitat is.
Yeah.
So when I was cutting wood, I'm thinking, okay, there's a ledge. What direction is it facing? And
Where can I run?
and sometimes I've got to go and put a log and chain around a log, and I got to, reach underneath and put it. And
you'll hear them.
I thought of it. I would think of that.
If you get close enough, you will hear them.
Yeah.
That rattle is very perceptible.
Yeah.
And actually, the gunfire was too, which I almost shot myself with. But there are people watching this and probably would have said, gee, why grab his gun?
I would never have been able to hit a rattlesnake with a pistol, that's for sure.
I think it was kind of like more a joke than anything else.
Yeah, hit
Yeah.
tourist thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we, somebody was asking, Neil Gorsuch has been
Yes.
affirmed.
approved.
Yes, the Senate has confirmed Trump's appointment. So people ask, what's the nuclear option that we heard so much about? So you know something about it. I know a little something about it. Why don't you tell us what it is from your perspective?
And what I know about it is that it's called the nuclear option because there's sort of a gentleman's agreement. The Senate is like a gentleman's club. And over the years, it's kind of run like, come see, come sa, well, I don't like them that much, but I like them enough to vote for them, kind of stuff. it has never been, at least maybe mostly never been, a political leaning group. They argue, they discuss, they deliberate over things. They have the right advice and consent. They put together, format a committee, and when a federal employee is approved for a job,
Appointed by the president.
anyone appointed by the president comes before this committee, and they run through the committee. The committee may vote up or down, but then it goes generally, I think in most cases, it goes to the whole body of the Senate.
Full Senate, yeah.
Full Senate, and then they vote on that person. In past years, and Tom knows more about that than I do, the civil rights era, some things happened that were kind of strange. Some years ago back, I think it was around 1991 or so, or 92, Joe Biden, former vice president, was a senator, and he talked about it, but they never really put the nuclear option into force. Several years ago, when Mr. Obama was president and Harry Reid was Senate Majority Leader, they could not, it appeared they couldn't get a lot of people approved for courts around the country that were federal. Obama appointed people. They would not allow them to be brought up for a vote. So he put in one he called for that, the lower courts.
Can you explain cloture?
You know, I really can't. I know what it is, but I don't want to explain it all.
It
Go ahead.
wouldn't be, cloture is ending debate, the vote for cloture. And that is, okay, no more debate, and we're going to now go to a vote. The vote has always been a majority, but they would require 60 votes to invoke cloture or to stop debate.
Exactly.
So that's why they call it a filibuster, which is a term they borrowed from, colloquial English to say somebody that goes on and on and on and on and on. And they were supposed to actually just keep yapping and pretend to debate the question when they could be talking about their mother's spaghetti recipe or something.
Which is not a bad thing.
Anyway, so that was it. So to invoke cloture. So somebody said that it went back to, well, the Republicans were in the minority in the Senate during the Obama administration, so they would try and filibuster President Obama's appointments to the lower courts, federal courts, but not the Supreme Court. And then Harry Reid, Majority Leader, Democrat, invoked, they call it the nuclear option. I think it's hyperbole.
Yeah, it really is.
Because it's nothing but a little rule that they happen to make.
Yeah.
So I guess the rule's been around a long time.
But I don't think ever used, right?
It was seldom used until the 60s, when, again, Democrats were in the majority, but they were divided about like Republicans are divided today.
The Dixiecrats.
They were Dixiecrats, Southern senators who were against the Civil Rights bill, and you had liberal senators, which is most of them today, who were for it. So the Dixiecrats used the filibuster to block civil rights for a long time. I forget how that was resolved.
It couldn't have been that long, right? It couldn't have been too long. Because it happened in 64. They all left around 64. They jumped.
It was in the early 70s that many of them became Republicans, like Strom Thurmond and
oh yeah, that's right. It was around the time
like,
of George Wallace,
like,
68.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? It was.
Oh, how it changed.
There were several other civil rights type bills, like the Voting Rights Act, and that were separate from the civil rights bill itself. So that, again, we're trying to, do essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Take away Southern states, things that Southern states had done to try and prevent blacks from voting. And
yes, you're right. That's right.
So there were multiple ones, and so it was used multiple times by the Dixiecrats.
One of the things I don't know if people fully understand is that the House and the Senate have bills, and they vote on their individual bills. And once the House passes a bill, then it would go up to the Senate.
Yeah.
So you kind of can have the same thing happen in that case if you don't agree to modify your legislation to match the House legislation, come close, so that everybody can then agree on a bill. So it can be a huge problem if it becomes too politicized. And I think it's kind of like the Senate was always this, what would you call it, a different kind of body that like deliberative, more a deliberative body. The House always kind of ruled by different functions and different aspects of something, and you've got all this majority group, you have minority group, like we have now. There's a group in there, what do they call them, the Freedom Coalition or something?
In the Republicans are divided now.
In the House, more so, right?
In the House, well, there's something called the Freedom Caucus in
Yeah.
the House, and that's very conservative Republicans, whom I would tend to agree with.
Yeah.
Very strict conservatives.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's right. But the House passes a bill, and then the bill goes to the Senate. Now, the Senate can make changes in that bill with amendments,
Yep.
just as the House can, and so then they might pass the bill, but it's not quite the same as the one the House
Right.
passed.
And they
So
have to-
then what happens is they form a committee that's a joint House-Senate committee, and the conference committee, they
Yeah,
call it, and then they work
conferees.
out those differences so they come up with one bill.
The thing can be vetoed by the president
Yes.
if it can't be overridden, which takes a certain percentage.
Two-thirds majority of
percent.
both houses.
So generally, when the
So that would be
House,
67 in the
that's
Senate.
what I tell you,
rather
it's
than
like
60.
making good wine, something, whatever it takes to make a long time. They have to get the bills formulated like that, and the Senate has to formulate it, and they put it together. They finally agree on all the amendments, all the forms of it. They finally agree on the bill, and they vote. The bill's voted. Now it goes to the president. And if the president decides to veto it, it would take a two-thirds majority
Of each house,
of each house to then get that veto overridden.
yes.
The problem is that's very, very hard to do, and almost, I don't know, it doesn't happen very often.
Well, even if one party were to have a two-thirds majority in the Senate, that's
very
rare.
unlikely
I mean, the Republicans
anymore.
now have, what, 52 senators,
It's
so that's...
very close.
And in the House, it's a
52
greater
to
majority.
48. I mean, that's what people have to understand, that these elections between the presidential elections, those midterm elections are so critical, because what happened in 2010, when Mr. Obama was elected in 2008, there were a lot of Republicans that were concerned about him. So in 2010, they came out en masse and voted and got more House and I think more Senate members, right?
No,
didn't have the Senate?
Democrats held the Senate, but
Very
the
slim,
Republicans
right?
took the House in
Yeah,
2010.
they took the House, and now
They've
they're
held it
taking-
ever since.
It's very difficult to get a lot done anymore, and that may be a good thing. It may be a good thing.
Well, the Constitution was designed that way. It was designed to make it difficult to pass legislation, and is that a good thing? I think it is.
I think the big mistake that's been made by the Senate in the last 2 years, I think the not allowing the president in his last year, Mr. Scalia died, I think, sometime around early February. Normally what would have happened is they bring somebody in to be the next Supreme Court judge, or at least try to get him. He wasn't even given a hearing. And that's probably the reason that Gorsuch had a tougher job, because the guy is basically a decent human being. I think he's a good person. Very conservative, but probably a very good, honorable judge, which I think a lot of them are. And I think, what was the guy's name who...
That Obama appointed?
Yeah, appointed. What was his name?
I forget
Can't
already.
remember.
He's
Odd
gonna-
name.
Nobody-
Maine had
everyone
something,
will forget about
But
it
anyway,
now.
but the point was, he was approved by the Federal Society, and they liked him. The groups that-
Federalist
yeah,
Society.
the Republican Society had all said, yeah, that guy's a great judge. But because it was all political, I think, a lot of it, they determined, okay, no, we're not going to talk to him because you're in the last year of your candidacy. Well, it's just like stupid. It's been done several times. But the thing is, it was political, and it's all political now. What we have to worry about, be concerned about,
Well, I think
will we get anything done in the future?
it's the judiciary has become very political.
That's right. I should
I
say
mean,
that,
witness
yeah.
one thing, and I think unconstitutionally so, but who is going to figure that out?
Who's gonna
It's
figure it out?
The Supreme Court's job to decide whether something is constitutional. They're the ultimate judges of that. But the lower courts can decide it too. They
Yep.
can be overridden by higher courts,
Yeah.
but they, for example, you had, I mean, I've read the Constitution. I used to teach it. It's not a very long document,
No.
and it's the president has the constitutional authority to execute the laws, and the laws as they exist say that the president controls immigration. So when the president says there'll be a travel ban on these countries, which he did twice now,
Yeah.
and it was overridden by some obscure federal judge, first in Washington State and then in Hawaii. And he said, what you have is this guy who nobody ever heard of before, all of a sudden can now say, no, Mr. President, curtail the powers of the president on a national security issue like that, bringing in potential terrorists from these terror-producing countries. And that's things are out of balance, but it's an example of how political the judiciary has become.
But it's all kind of, I don't think it's just become that way, because there's been judges that have said, well, it's okay to have 10 commandments mounted in the front of the courthouse and all this stuff. There's always been differences of opinion across states and stuff like that.
But this was a federal judge.
Yes, it's a federal judge, and they have an awful lot, a tremendous amount of power. The thing is, the problem we had, because they didn't allow us to get the ninth judge, is during that year and a half.
Supreme Court Justice.
Supreme Court Justice. During that year and a half of no ninth Supreme Court Justice, we had a 4-4 group, basically.
Right.
We had 4 moderately liberals, 4 moderately conservatives. So what happens at the lower court, and this is where that becomes very, very important, because at a lower court, they make a decision. No gays in their state, or no bathrooms in there. Whatever they want to make a decision about, they make a decision.
Then it goes to the Supreme Court.
But when it gets to the Supreme Court, if it's a 4-4 tie, the state regulation, the state judge's opinion,
the lower court,
the
not
lower
state,
court,
but lower federal
court,
judge.
lower federal court ruling stands
Right.
until you get that ninth guy. So my concern was, and it should have been everybody's concern, for that year that we didn't have that ninth Supreme Court judge, which hasn't happened that very often. I think the normal is a very, very short period between putting in that new ninth Supreme Court judge on. Anything could happen. I mean, they could outlaw, some judge in Hawaii can say, no more executions. Boom. It goes to the Supreme Court.
That's
Supreme Court
happened.
says, 4-4. That guy's ruling becomes law.
Well, now what you say, 4-4, that has become so rigid. That is, that you have
Locked in
4
place.
liberal judges and you have 3 conservative judges, and Kennedy has swung
He
one
goes
way
either
or
way.
the other. I mean, the other
think he
3,
does, too.
and so has even the Chief Justice Roberts.
On
He
the-
went the other way
on
on,
the,
on
what was that?
Obamacare
What was it?
constitutionality.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so but you never see the 4 liberals switch over and vote on a conservative side. That never happens. They are completely predictable.
I don't know.
In
I
every
don't follow
case.
it that closely, but
Well, I do, and
I
that's
haven't
been the
seen it,
case.
yeah.
I mean, something that wasn't political, they may go. All of them agree. Some stuff passes unanimously. Sometimes it's
The Supreme Court is an odd place, because back in 1953 or 54, I think it was, Earl Warren, who was a very conservative judge governor of California, Eisenhower
appointed him.
appointed him to the Supreme Court. And it became, after a while, the Earl Warren Court. You might remember they from the Warren Commission, when they reviewed the Kennedy assassination and all that kind of stuff come out. Earl Warren became what President
Very liberal.
Eisenhower said, my worst decision as a president. And
Yeah.
that included Vietnam and everything. I mean, there was a lot of things he did that were kind of mysterious. But the Iran change of government in 1952 was his doing. Our involvement in Vietnam, our involvement at the Bay of Pigs before Kennedy took the hit for it, that was Eisenhower.
And he thought, Earl Warren. Well, you had
So,
several
you know-
judges. David Souter from New Hampshire. He was
Yeah,
appointed. I mean, he was a conservative, and
Yeah.
then he went to the other side.
He went to the
so,
other
like
side.
Warren did, but you never see it go the other way.
I
I mean,
don't know.
I personally have
I
gone
haven't.
in the other direction. I used to be liberal, and now I am conservative.
Hmm.
But not. There's been very little traffic in that direction. Most of the traffic tends to go this way,
Well, maybe-
especially when it comes to government officials.
Well, maybe the conservatives begin to learn a little about humanity as they're on the court for a while. That may be a possibility because as you
You could make the case, but
What if Gorsuch, now, you know what I really hope? I hope to heaven that Gorsuch comes on and is more liberal than conservative. I will be amazed if it happens. I don't think it can happen, but if it happened, I would laugh myself to sleep because I think that would be, or the chief becomes more liberal as he gets a little older, a little wiser, is what happens. It does happen, you know. You see, here's the thing about conservatism. Liberals get older and wiser. Conservatives get very tight. They don't like to make a change in anything. And so that's what happens. So have we gone through this enough? Do you think we...
I'm okay with it. Do you have another topic you
I
want to bring
can't
up? Go
imagine
ahead.
anything I might bring into this that would improve on what a legal scholar like my friend Mr.
I think, no, I'm cool
Tom
with
is-
it. I mean, we brought up
Oh.
the nuclear option. I think they never should have called it that because
No,
that's the ultimate
it's
weapon,
more of the
nuclear
same.
weapon.
It's
And
more of the
not-
same.
It is.
No.
It's overstatement to call it that. I think it's a procedural rule that can be
Senate-
changed.
the
One more
Senate-
irony.
Go ahead.
One more irony
Give
about
me an
that.
irony.
And Bill Marvel brought it up when he filled in for you one week, and he said it's interesting that in order to invoke the nuclear option, as they put it, it took a simple majority of 51 votes to undo the 60 vote requirement.
Exactly.
You know?
I know. It's kind of stupid.
Dumb.
isn't
It is an irony.
But-
But that could be brought back in just as easily as it was thrown
it?
out.
Absolutely. It's not. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah.
If any of you really spend your nights worrying about this, the next time the thing happens, it'll probably be a different thing. But
And it still applies to legislation unless they undo it
yeah.
again.
No,
Yeah.
it's so easy to undo it. If they all go to the
Yeah.
same golf club and
Yeah.
they golf every day at the same beautiful places before work and after
Or
work.
they're all Republicans.
Boy, hey, by the way, top management, our seer, the man who makes this happen,
The all-wise, all-knowing.
all wise knowing Pooh Bah.
Yes, yes.
Pooh Bah. Should we call him the Pooh Bah? I said we
Read
get-
it. Let's see what he
okay.
says.
Last week, Turkey President Recep Erdogan won a referendum giving him substantial new powers, including the power to issue decrees, declare emergency rule, appoint ministers and top state officials, and dissolve parliament. What could the repercussions of this new development be, and what do you make of Trump? He says President Trump here. President Trump calling to congratulate Erdogan. We actually discussed
I
this
hope
a
that
little
Donald
bit.
Trump was just being politic by doing that. I hope he didn't really think that it was a good thing that Erdogan won all those powers. But, you know, for one, I mean, he's become essentially more a dictator, an autocrat.
Yeah.
Than he had much more power centered in one person. That's not a good thing. But what worries me about it is that Erdogan has been reversing what has been a 100-year-old tradition in Turkey, which is to separate church and state. I mean, it is a majority Muslim country,
Yep.
but after they lost World War I, the new guy that came in, I forget his name, escapes me right now, but he
Ataturk?
right.
Attaboy, that's where I go. When I get an answer,
Attaboy,
Ataturk.
Attaboy. Ataturk separated church and state,
Yeah.
so that the imams are not going to have control of government. Well, now Erdogan wants to merge the two
Yep.
again, and that troubles me.
The thing that troubled me a little bit about it was I watched him come out during his speech when he was accepting whatever it was, and his wife had a burqa on. And what
I didn't know that.
Yeah, what leads me to believe it must have been his wife because I don't think it was a parliamentary person, but she was walking out with him, and he stood on the stage, was giving his speech, and I thought, oh boy, is he declaring for the other side?
Yes.
Now the other side, he's the door opener that lets people in from Syria
That's right.
that then filter into Europe. So this is I don't understand about Trump. He's driving me crazy. Crazy. He never should have said a word. A. B, He makes a personal phone call to this cluck who is imprisoning thousands of people for the last 6 months over the coup attempt that failed. At least for some reason. You seem to think they was probably just going to get rid of him anyway because they were a problem to him. No freedom of the press. So here we've got Donald Trump calling him personally now. A few weeks ago, these things on the international circle mean a lot. It means a lot when your president calls another president or prime minister and says, hey, good going, boy. Our allies pick this up and say, wait a minute. He loves this guy. He has Merkel, Angela Merkel from Germany, powerful country. And he sits there to a whole meeting with her, basically says something really stupid that she got really upset about, something about her
She came over to visit recently.
Yeah, came to Washington.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even shake her hand in public. Now, what are we saying to the world? He's hugging Putin. He's sending his ambassador to see him.
Not literally.
Not literally. But what do you mean? Putting his arms around these people that are a little bit worse than we'd like to think we'd be under the same circumstances. I don't know, maybe you've got an explanation for it.
There's several other things going on behind the scenes. As I said before, I hope he was doing that just to be politic, just to say, okay, good, because we do have U.S. Marines fighting alongside Turkish forces, ostensibly against ISIS in Syria.
Right.
So you got to kind of do something, right? Because we're vulnerable in that way. Another thing is, in World War I, when Turkey lost, Turkey was allied to the Germans in World War I. And Turkey had a huge empire all across. They controlled
the Ottoman Empire, was it?
Yes,
the old Ottoman Empire.
In Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Israel, and
all that Palestine, that whole area.
North up to Bulgaria, up that way.
Huge empire.
And it was, and it was dissolved. Basically, France and England took it and divided it between themselves, and wrote the national boundaries that we have today, of which disenfranchised the Kurds, for example. There should have been a Kurdistan, but there wasn't. Instead, it was some went to Iran, some went to Turkey, some went to Syria, and it's and now that's a problem today because the Kurds, anyway.
Long memories.
You really need to study history and understand.
It's too bad we've stopped. That's a big problem. We've stopped looking at history, and I don't think.
Maybe you remember who said that the past isn't never past.
No.
It's still with us all the time.
Those who ignore the past,
it's here. It's with us. But yeah, so that's one thing. So
but the other, what happened in Armenia? What was that? The 1 million people that were killed. Was that Turkish?
It was, and it was just. See, now another thing about Turkey was when it was the Ottoman Empire. Right. The caliph was the head of the Ottoman Empire. Right. And there have been caliphs ever since Muhammad died in 632 AD. Exactly. And so ISIS says now it is the new caliphate because there hasn't been a caliphate for 100 years. So, trying to marshal all the different facets of Islam into one, that's what ISIS tried to do. And so, but now if Turkey, the last caliph, he's the one, they basically want to purify the area, and Armenians are Christians.
Yes,
they're
they
Orthodox Christians.
Somebody killed 1 million of them, I guess.
Yes, the caliph did.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And some Greeks lived there too, and Greeks are Christians. So it was mostly Armenians, but several 100,000 Greeks also were exterminated, and that was in the 19-teens, like 1912, 1914.
Was it before the war?
Just before the war, yes. And so. It's not unlike what ISIS is doing now, killing Christians and so forth.
Well, the thing is, I was concerned because when I see his wife with a burqa walking out with him, and that's a signal to that world. I mean, you must admit, if these people in Syria who don't know his wife's...
very troubling
That's
signal.
very troubling. And then to have the President of the United States call and say, give him an attaboy to Ataturk's homeland. You don't do it. I mean, you just don't do it. Somebody has got to grab a hold of Trump in Washington when these things happen and say to him, shut up, don't do it, I think he would listen to that. I think the problem is that, oh, you're very right, sir. Oh, yes, you're very right, sir. Oh, go ahead, do that, sir. Somebody's got to tell him to stop, and I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe his son-in-law.
Now you have, I think it's today is the elections in France. Okay.
Yeah.
And France, and they have runoffs like they had in Georgia yesterday. That is, you have multiple candidates, and then they get it down to 2, and they have a runoff between the top 2 vote getters.
Oh, in a month or something. It doesn't take long.
Right.
It's not like ours,
know,
4 years.
Yeah. Now in Georgia, we got a runoff in June,
Right.
but I don't know how the French do it. But it's a very critical election because what the left is afraid of is that what's her name? Oh gosh,
There's a conservative, very conservative,
a
right
woman, and she's a conservative, a right-wing party. Her father had started, and now she's not quite as right-wing as he was. But she basically wants to get out of the EU, for one thing, have a Frexit. They had a Brexit, British out of the EU. Now she wants a French out of the EU, but mostly out of the EU because the EU controls immigration.
Yeah.
And basically says that you can go in between countries without passports, and if you live in France, you have a right to go move to England if you want to, or Italy.
They're
or,
all so close by.
and she wants to make it nationalist. That is, the nation state would be preeminent rather than the wider, bigger EU or UN or any of that.
So what happens in that election could be important. Well, at least that guy Haider, who was running in Austria, who I think
barely lost,
used to sleep in his Nazi uniform, and then somebody in Amsterdam,
in Holland,
Holland lost.
Well, your side said he lost, but
well, he didn't win. I mean, he's not the president or whatever they have over there.
He did win, I think, 5 more seats in Parliament, and that's how they're parliamentary.
Yeah, I
over
know.
there.
It's parliamentary.
So he had so many seats. He ended up with more seats, but he didn't end up with enough seats to be a majority.
Right.
The guy that has the
rules.
majority, he lost seats, but he didn't. So it's
See, that's why
you can spin it any way you want. Okay?
We've talked about this before over the years. We've been on like 7 years now, maybe going 8. And I think the United States is heading that way. I think we're heading
way?
towards a parliamentary system. Eventually, it won't
I know
happen
you
in
like
our
it.
It won't happen in our lifetimes. But you can see it with these groups, the splinter groups, like that group that's now the Freedom Party, that's controlling enough votes.
Freedom Caucus.
Freedom Caucus. Yes, they form a Tea Party, right? Wasn't that what the form a Tea Party group, basically? I don't know.
You could say, yeah.
Okay, so that caucus, the Black Caucus, which has a number of members now, 30 on the Democratic, quite a few,
Yeah.
might be 50. And then you've got all these other cocky groups, and they're basically eliminating that old situation that happened where, okay, it was Democrats, Republicans, you voted right, you voted left, whatever, and things got passing it through. These people can now stop all these things in their own little way. They can slow them down, they can put amendments in the copy, and all that kind of stuff. So I see us heading someday, maybe 100 years from now, maybe 70 years from now, that this will no longer be a two-party democratic society. It will be a parliamentary system, much like Europe. I think it works better. I think the parliamentary system might work better.
I think the parliamentary system has its pluses and minuses. For example, Prime Minister May in the UK has yesterday called for new elections.
Yeah.
So we have our presidential elections every 4 years, and that's what the Constitution dictates. But they can call them at the drop of a hat. And then
On a big issue, some issue. Give me
for example, I couldn't get my legislation through Parliament. Therefore, they don't have confidence in me, and it's considered a vote of no confidence.
Right.
Therefore, that will trigger an election.
Exactly.
And or she can call one. Now, our Constitution dictates how our government will be run.
Right.
Now, we might end up with other parties, like, I don't know, we have the Libertarian Party doesn't get very many votes, a small percentage. The Greens get a small percentage. But if one of them were to all of a sudden become more powerful, and we have a 3 viable parties, each of them putting up a candidate, that still wouldn't change the Constitution.
No.
Constitution dictates. So we would need a constitutional convention to design the kind of government that you're discussing.
I'm just saying it could happen. It could happen as you get these groups that are splintering, and they're splintering in a way that They don't want compromise. And I'm not just saying the Freedom Caucus. I'm saying all these people, they don't want to compromise. They don't agree in compromise. And this system was basically built on compromise.
Another one, you just brought up something else that we discussed when your substitute was here, Bill Marlowe. We talked about the Constitution and how it works, and he said, could the Constitution? I mean, it was ratified when we had 13 states. Could we have ratified the Constitution in today's 50 states? Could we have gotten 3/4 of the states to ratify it? And it was a good point. Probably not.
You couldn't get the Equal Rights Amendment in 1974 or 8, was it?
In the 70s sometime, yeah.
And I mean, it got to Utah. I think Utah killed it because you needed, what, 2/3 in the country?
I don't know what Utah required a vote within their own legislature, but it was 3/4 of the states were required to ratify.
And that's an Equal Rights Amendment. You think, gee, how easy is that? Well, of course, you want equal rights for everybody, don't we? Yeah, it was all there. And yet, no.
One woman
stopped
it. You remember who? She just died. Phyllis Schlafly.
Oh, Schlafly, yeah, the old Schlafly.
She single-handedly stopped the Equal Rights Amendment.
She was about 90-something years old, that old bat.
She was quite a woman.
Yeah, she was a bat. But her son was gay. What really was funny to me, and I find it all I love this right-wing conservatism that they preach this anti-gay stuff, and then her son turned out to be gay. I don't know, maybe it could be a strong mother thing. I don't understand what it is, but a lot of these people, the Cheneys, a gay daughter, and yet they'll vote against their own. I don't understand it. So it just shows you, they do have a point. They do believe what they preach in a lot of cases. Like you think Schlafly would have just pulled up her tent and said, well, my son's gone gay. What am I going to do? And go away.
Well, you're going to get hate mail for saying what you said.
What? No, I shouldn't. I don't read my mail.
You said her son was gay.
Yeah.
Therefore, it might have been a strong mother thing. I mean, homosexual activists, anathema when you bring that up.
What?
The weak father, strong mother model. They say you're born that way. You don't become that way. It's not a choice. You can't reverse it.
I don't even get into that. But at least it's not the Oedipus. At least it's not Oedipus.
You crossed that line.
I probably fell into a trap. Yeah.
I agree with you.
I'm sorry.
I agree with you, but
no, I don't agree with that.
your side will not agree with you.
I was saying that I go back to Freud. Yeah, Freud. Freud. You know Freud?
I've heard of him.
Did you ever see Trump's Doctor? Did you ever see the movie
Trump's
The Pink Panther?
Doctor?
Yeah.
Peter Sellers.
Right. Did you see The Pink Panther where he dresses up and he goes to fix the guy's teeth?
I don't think
Herbert
I've seen
Lom,
that particular one.
And he gets in the castle. He had the same, he looked just like Trump's doctor. Honest to God.
You bring that up because?
I don't know why. It just went like, I have this kind of brain that like transports
All right,
left,
go ahead.
right.
Bring up something.
I'm going to bring up something. I'm trying to see. Our bombing raid on the desert in, why? See what I don't understand?
Afghanistan?
No, Syria, another war front.
Okay, those are missiles.
Yeah. What?
Missiles.
Yeah. Well, bombing missiles.
All right.
They were Tomahawk 4 missiles, okay? 59 of them, but it was Tomahawk 4.
Oh.
It's an updated version.
Oh.
So they decide they're going to show Bozo the Clown there in Syria, Assad. The guy's a damn eye surgeon. Hafiz Assad. His father was a butcher.
Basher. His father was Hafez.
Yeah, Hafez. He's Basher.
Yeah.
Now, you don't name a kid Basher and think he's gonna be a nice kid, right? But he went to school in England. He got his degree in ophthalmology. Came back. He was working as a great guy, and people loved him. And
I don't know about
Hafiz
that, but go ahead.
croaks, and they put Basher, boy wonder Basher, in power. And he started out a little okay, but now he's making Gaddafi look like St. Thomas Aquinas. So anyway, our president, your president, Trump, decides, for poisoning all those people. We had killed 250 innocent civilians a week before in a bombing raid in Syria. It didn't make much of news. We didn't get much news. U.S. bomber bombed a little
against
town.
ISIS.
Against ISIS. Killed 250 women, children, men, maybe 2 ISIS guys picking up coffee at the local deli. Come to find out, that horrifies us now because 2 weeks, that wasn't horrible. A week later, he gasses a bunch of people. Oh my God, we got to do something about this. Trump comes out, says this major speech about Assad and all this stuff. What do? They bomb a desert airport after telling the Russians, we're going to bomb. Oh, we're going to send our Tomahawk cruise missiles in. So they move all their people out of the way, a couple of mechanics and a laborer. And we bomb this desert air base that had nothing on it but a bunch of, Cessna 2-engine planes. Why don't they bomb his damn palace with him in it? Why don't we do that? I mean, that would say, hey, you mean something, don't you? You really mean it. Tell the Russians, get your people out of the palace.
You're not against bombing Syria?
No, not at all. But what I'm saying is, hit his palace. Don't give him one of these token little things. Oh yeah, did you see the pictures of it? This desert with all these shells of the Tomahawk missiles lying all over the place.
No, I didn't.
What good is that? That didn't teach them.
Okay, I have mixed feelings about
Do you remember when
this.
Reagan bombed Gaddafi?
Yes.
You remember his son got killed, his little 10-year-old
Yes.
son? It was a horrible thing to do in a way, but Gaddafi had been the reason for the Swiss flight that was, Boeing flight that was,
Yes.
Pan Am, I guess it was, Lockerbie.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, they blew.
I have mixed feelings about this. One, Trump campaigned saying that he would not get us involved
That's a
in
whole
these
nother
Middle
deal.
Eastern conflicts. And here he's done two things to get us involved. That is, he's put U.S. Marines on the ground
Yep.
in Syria.
Yep.
That didn't get a whole lot of attention.
No, it
but I don't.
doesn't.
That troubled me. Then you have, because of all the, we don't know who our friends are and who our enemies are.
Can't tell.
And we don't know what's victory. It's defeating ISIS. Okay, so then what? And we don't have none of that has been. If it's been thought out at all, we haven't heard about what the plan is.
Yep.
And so that troubles me. The other thing was the missiles that you mentioned, and then I'm ambivalent about that because it did use, even though weapons kill innocent people no matter what kind of weapons they are. Yes, but when you cross into what we call weapons of mass destruction, which involve chemical, biological,
Right.
and nuclear, then you're in a different dimension. And so because he used chemical weapons to do it, that I think did require
It
some
crossed
kind
the
of
line.
a response.
It definitely
Well,
crossed the
Obama drew
line.
that line, but then he let them cross it. He
Yeah,
didn't
we got to
really
take a break
retaliate.
on that one because Congress would not approve.
Well, let me finish my
involvement.
point, and then you can go yours.
I know.
So I'm troubled again because it's another incursion into Syria, against the government, not ISIS. So now we have
Yeah,
two different
right.
enemies there again.
Right.
And so
Maybe
and
more
Trump-
than
so-
two, because we just killed a bunch of Afghans somewhere.
Well,
That was the other
that's
day.
an ongoing war that we have.
No, the people the Turks, aren't they not Turks? The Afghans, not Afghans.
We dropped that
There's
big
another
bomb
group.
in
What's
Afghanistan.
The Kurdish people that were fighting alongside us. We just killed a bunch of them in
Unintentionally.
Syria unintentionally.
Yeah. Well.
But if somebody kills you, Tom, and it's unintentional, you're still dead.
Well,
You may have a way around that, but
the ISIS fighters were using civilians as shields.
Yep.
So it's like a hostage situation. I mean,
Awful.
in a bank, what do you do? So it's tough. And that's why the ISIS fighters do it. Hamas does the same thing in Gaza, and so it's difficult to deal with.
one of the
Politically hurts.
things. But do we, in other words, we sent a message to Gaddafi way back when. He understood the message. He immediately started
Reagan
to
sent a
turn-
very clear
He
message.
started to turn it around in the world
It did.
because of it.
He got rid of his nuclear weapons
He
plans.
did a lot of stuff.
Yes, he did.
This guy, this clown, Basher boy, is a sick man. He's he's been responsible for 500,000 deaths. 2 million or so people leaving the country, flooding into. And the big problem we have right now is this guy in Turkey, Erdogan. Erdogan. And this guy, I wish they had easier names like Bailey or Smith or Johnson. We opened the door now wider by giving what he got approval if he's going to lean more to the Muslim side than say the average Turk side. If he's going to do that, the secular side, if he's going to do that, we are in a world of hurt. And if you want to see Europe go completely right, just let a couple of thousand more crazy people in with bombs.
Muslim immigrants.
Crazy people in with
Yeah.
bombs. Because what will happen is that whole area will go nationalist. And we're going to be party to all those people, enjoying life with them as they take away democratic ideals that we supposedly stand for. I don't know. It's
I
a
think you're right
situation.
about it's a very complicated
Oh,
situation.
God.
But I think there's already a critical mass of Muslim in every country in Europe where it's too late to prevent. You can prevent it from getting worse faster, but you can't prevent it from getting worse. You get worse faster if we brought another million into Germany, another 500,000 into France,
Could
another
very well happen.
250,000 into Holland, and so forth, which is what Erdogan is
That's what I'm
threatening
afraid
to
of.
do.
Yeah.
But it's already they're breeding. They have 4, 5, 6 kids per woman among that particular demographic in each country, whereas the ethnic French, ethnic Germans
They
are
have
having
half a kid.
or few,
Yeah, half a
or
kid.
fewer than one. So you don't have to be a genius to
You'll be
figure out
outnumbered in no
that
time.
that minority is going to increase, and the German, the ethnic majority now is going to shrink, and so. And there's no assimilation taking place. The Muslims are not assimilating as Germans, French,
Well, I think
and
a lot of
Dutch.
people did. When they came to the United States, the Italians all lived in one section of wherever they lived. The Irish were all in one section. No, it's taken us, God, near 200 years to get a dispersion. Because look at, you go up to Minnesota, Wisconsin, you get all the Germans in one particular area because the climate was the same. And now with the Mexicans and South Americans and those people all want to be where it's warm, obviously.
So
That's their custom.
your grandparents moved from Italy and Ireland, right?
to Boston. Yeah, Italy to Boston.
And Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were both in Italian-Irish sections.
And yet your father was Italian, your mother Irish.
Right.
So there was assimilation, or at least mingling going on, right?
Each mother did not go to the wedding.
Oh, is that so? Okay. And yet they're both Catholics.
Oh, Catholics.
Right.
One made Irish too, the other
Okay.
made. That didn't matter.
Yeah.
They did not
They
go to
did-
the weddings.
really?
No?
Oh, man.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
My father, both men went.
Okay.
Figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I understand it. I married
It's
a
a
Greek.
bizarre world.
My wife Roseanne, her surname was Greek. Her father spoke Greek, but yet he was half German, half Greek.
There you go.
And her mother was French, Canadian, and various kinds of Indian, Abenaki Indian. So she's an American, really, my
Yeah,
wife, right?
yeah.
But she had a Greek name, and we had Greek Easter and so forth. My grandmother,
Love
the
those
old
olives.
Mary Fitzgerald, she said, she looks kind of Greeky to me, It's sort of like she was against my romancing this woman who was not Irish
Kind
Catholic.
of Greeky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We still laugh about that at
I
home.
get it.
But yet my parents were both my father's McLaughlin and my mother was Haggerty. I mean, all my ancestors are Irish, but they go back my great grandparents' generation.
Yeah.
That's when so they've been here longer, but they didn't really assimilate.
Right.
Yours were here a shorter time, three generations as
Actually,
opposed to
19.
actually 2 when they married, right?
Yes.
But 3 on my case, and they didn't.
That was the second. Yeah, they were the
didn't
second.
intermarry.
generation.
So it's,
Amazing. And, we later figure it all out that, really things happen better when you probably assimilate. So I have
yeah.
hope. I have actually hope for the legal people that have come in from the South America and Central America. And I have hope that we will do something with the ones that were born here and not ship them back and create all kinds of that stuff. I'm hoping that happens. I don't know if we can ever agree on anything anymore. But
they're more likely to assimilate if they come from Central America than if they come from Mexico.
probably true. I don't know
Because
for sure.
Mexico is right there, and there's still a lot of feeling on the part of Mexicans that, that Arizona and New Mexico and
It's theirs.
California all belong to us,
Sure.
and Texas too, because you took it away from us in that war in the 1840s. But they still their memories are such.
Was that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, as
Yes.
I remember?
No, wait.
I think it might have.
I think it was.
I'm
think-
almost sure it was.
Wait a minute. Then Guadalupe Hidalgo, that's in Mexico. Did we have the talks in Mexico? I don't think it was.
You know, my grandfather
Yeah.
on my mother's side fought against Pancho Villa.
That was, yeah.
Huh?
I didn't know
Imagine
that, but yeah,
He
that's
was
in
a 20-year-old
that's
soldier.
right at the end, 1917, probably, right? General Pershing
In that
went
era.
in there, and Patton.
And he was here around, I guess he moved here probably around 1914 or something.
I
But isn't
read,
that amazing? And I actually have.
I read a Patton biography.
I've got one of those canvas bags that they used to put on the horses with the Army insignia. I've got that. Perfect condition.
It's
I
worth
may put it
something.
on eBay.
Worth something.
Should
General
be worth
Pershing
something.
used to come and hang out in Lovell, you know. He was a friend
Was he,
of these
was he,
artists.
he must have been
artist colony.
conservative, right? All the generals must have been.
Most likely.
Yeah.
General
Blackjack. Was that Blackjack or was that his
Yeah.
father? Blackjack
No, yeah,
Pershing.
it was. And then he was commander of American forces.
So
in
what do
World
we
War
do?
I.
What do we do with the
I
love
have,
affair?
I have an interesting story for you, though.
You
But,
want? Do you think they want to hear it?
Of course they
Okay.
do. It's interesting.
Present it.
George Patton was on Pershing's staff.
Mm-hmm.
He was a junior officer.
Right.
And he went, Pershing sent him in to get some bandits that had done a raid on American forces, and he said to Patton, go get those people.
Where was it? Where-
In Mexico.
Oh,
Patton
okay.
crossed into Mexico. We chased Pancho Villa
Oh,
across
wow,
the
wow,
water,
yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
so now that Patton's involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
So Pershing sent him to go after these raiders.
Yeah.
So Patton goes after him in a sedan, a staff car, and with some other soldiers and some other
Pro-handle
vehicles,
pistols.
and they found him in a house evidently, and they were holed up in there. So they surrounded the house. They ended up they killed him. Right?
Oh, did they? Is that
Yeah,
way- is that
they
how they
did.
got killed? He was
and
a
then
firing squad.
Patton comes back to Pershing with a Mexican strapped over each fender as if it were a deer that he shot.
Not a good move.
And
Not a
that's
good
it.
move.
But that's Patton for you.
Well, I
You know,
think
so-
Eisenhower was actually on Patton's staff.
Yeah.
He was below Patton, and I think who was the other guy that was
No, you're thinking of Bradley, I think.
Omar Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley was.
I saw him in a football
Eisenhower
game one time.
outranked
You know
both
that?
of them.
Omar Bradley was watching TV one time, and they wheeled Omar Bradley onto the field at a halftime thing. Somewhere, I think it was Army-Navy. Must have been an Army-Navy game.
Hmm. Yeah, he lived a
Omar
long
Bradley.
time.
Yeah, he lived into his
Yeah,
late 90s.
and he wrote or he was a consultant on the movie Patton.
I don't know how much time we've got left.
I don't know,
But I think,
we had
you
some-
know,
there's a couple other
should
things
we
you
talk
should
a
bring
little
up.
about the
North Korea.
Oh, poor North
Did the U.S.
Korea.
sabotage North Korean the missile launch? It blew up on the pad, or shortly after
It
it
could have.
launched.
Cyber.
So you don't know. I don't know either.
It could have.
But
You know,
we
the
may
only-
never know.
Here's the thing. I wondered what happened with the fleet. I understood the fleet was going there to stand by Japan. But I wonder how Japan felt now that they found out they were standing by off of Indonesia somewhere, thousands of miles away. What was that all about? Does
Yeah.
he know where they're going? Are they talking to
He
him?
must have.
The other day when he said, "This is my army," well, my military. Remember? Did you hear that conversation? I
Who was he
said-
talking with?
He was talking with just the
Press
reporters.
conference?
Yeah, press conference. My military. It's his military. All of a sudden,
Oh, he is. He's commander-in-chief.
yeah, they don't call it. It's not like my caddy just drove up with my clubs, you know? That isn't what it
Okay.
is. The man has no expertise. I know he's never been a politician, but geez, even working in the gutters of New York with all these
Well,
mustache
the general is going to
beats.
say my men. Why can't the president, commander-in-chief say
Just
it?
that, did you ever hear anybody say? I didn't ever hear John Kennedy say, "My people are in," or Eisenhower say, "My," or Nixon even, for God's sakes.
Is that all we got left? 5 minutes?
Yeah, we've only got, this has been, I'll
Wow.
tell you what, this, did I have any other
All
notes?
right.
That I made?
Okay.
I'm doing all these
We got
notes.
another one of these.
Oh, yeah, why don't you read
Let's
that?
do it. Last week, turkeys. Oh, you already read that one.
Yeah, it's number 2.
Both President Obama and President Trump have drawn criticism for the expense of their trips around the country, specifically to Florida. Each trip, and in case of Trump, each trip is estimated to cost between $2 and $3.5 million. Should there be a specific budget for presidential travel expenses?
I think when we've got a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a conservative Republican presidency, I think we should start talking about what we spend on these things, because I understand, only from hearing it on a TV show, that Mr. Trump is spending at a rate that will be, I don't know, 10 times as much as Obama spent in 8 years. He's going to spend that much in 1 year. Well, we're spending $1/3 billion to keep his wife in New York for that, and it's costing the city of New York, I forget how many millions of dollars the mayor was complaining about. It's costing millions of dollars a week in West Palm Beach, Florida, because they got to put on guards and overtime and all this stuff. And it's costing how many, $2 or $3 million a trip. He has been to Florida 9 weeks since he took the oath of office. He works till Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning. They pick him up in the 747, bring him to Palm Beach till Sunday night or whatever, bring him back to... It's insane what we're doing. And it isn't just the money, but it's what it looks like. I mean, he's down there at his own private hotel selling memberships at $200,000. The Secret Service is scared to the bananas out of it because there's people all around him. He's having dinner. They don't search the people. They do a small search on, but anybody can do anything there. It's crazy. I don't know why we're allowing it, but he is the president.
Well,
it's insane.
When I read the question, I was thinking, okay, well, constitutionally, could it be done? And it would require, I don't know, I mean, would it be upsetting the balance of power? Or we have three separate branches of government, and one is not supposed to incur on the power of the other. So who would do this? It would have to seem to come from the legislature. It would then be get the Congress usurping the power of the president. I mean, that could be made. So that's one problem. Then you got the other problem. The other thing that made my mind went back to the original, President Washington. But I think it was the capital is it New York or was it Philadelphia?
Philadelphia for a while, then New York.
Wasn't the White House?
No, that was later.
But he had a place in Mount Vernon. Did he go there? I don't know.
That's a long ride. What do you mean when they were in New York?
If it's from Philadelphia or New York, it would be, not from Washington, D.C., but
probably
they were making plans for it then.
It was probably a day trip.
You're right.
Think about having a toothache in Jackson. You had to go to Conway to the dentist.
And then your next president is Adams, and he lives up in Quincy, Mass. So, either wherever the capital was, it's a long trip. I don't know how often he went back and forth.
I doubt
not
they
very
went very much at all.
I read his biography, too.
You'd have bunions on your butt.
Yeah. And then the next one is Jefferson, and he had a place nearby, also in Virginia, in Charlottesville, a little further away. So...
You know what I was wondering about the other, and this is, I think that it would take legislation because their salaries are determined by legislation too. So it would take a legislative act.
That's right. The president, salary.
And he could veto it.
I don't know.
And he could veto it when you get 2/3 of the House and Senate to agree.
You think there's a movement to do this?
No, and I was wondering about why Rome really never did too well after 415 or whatever it was AD. I was watching the other day, one of those Roman.
Easter films.
Easter films, yeah. We were talking about this morning. And they're running around in their chariots, right? And you were going to visit some Pompey or some big guy. And I wondered, why didn't they ever put 4 wheels on them and make them wagons? It's a good question. I mean, think of how they would have exceeded themselves.
Basically got one guy, maybe two.
That's it.
And he's got the reins.
They walked everywhere.
But then he also... 1 minute. They'd fight from it too with swords.
Can I look that up for the next show? I'd like to. Yeah,
do that. You do that.
I mean, I don't know why they never had 4 wheels on a wagon. I mean, you'd think the Romans would have figured that out when they built aqueducts and all this other stuff.
Maybe they tried it and decided they didn't.
You know why they never really did well though in math?
Who?
You ever try to multiply 56 times 591 in Roman numerals?
Oh no.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
Take you like all day to get the answer.
You can use a calculator.
So we need some cards and letters from these people this week to let us know.
So how did we do?
How
did we do? From my perspective, I think it went better. I felt more comfortable.
I think it went well if we have good topics that aren't too political, because you know what? My whole story for the next how many years we're on this stupid show is going to be I can't do Trump every week. We gotta, because
Yeah.
he's doing so many things. That
You know,
just,
I can't find another liberal to take your place. I mean, I had a
There
hard time
aren't any.
finding Bill Marvel.
No, well, it's not hard to find Bill Marvel. Just look in the rag.
He doesn't want to do it anymore.
Oh no, he doesn't have that kind of savoir faire. He doesn't have it.
Well,
I watched
think you
2
did
minutes of
well.
the show
We
and
gotta
I
go.
had-
We gotta wrap it up.
All right, thank you folks for coming in. We'll see you in a couple weeks, Tom. Thank you very much again.